They do now, but in the beginning, 20 years ago, they did not. They set about educating people. But 20, 30 years ago, they did not.
Was there a dictatorial style of government as well? Maybe an autocrat as well. They've had, Malaysia, for example, has had a leader for a long time. Singapore had even, South Korea had even military people at some time. Soldiers. And they could transform those countries.
In many cases, it has been the case, yeah. You've had very strong leaders who have held a very firm hold on the reins of power.
Is that a good
direction. It can be. Sometimes one can argue that many of our countries cannot afford the luxury of excessive debate. At the end of the day, once we've debated and expressed ourselves, we've got to go back to the grinding stone and move forward. You take a country like Tunisia, which is a very interesting example that many people are not aware of.
Yeah.
This is a country that has grown between 6 to 10% per annum for the last dozen or so years. Incredibly successful track record of building its economic base and improving the standards of living of its people. And when you go to Tunisia, the sense that you get is that there is debate, there is some measure of freedom of expression.
Some measure.
Some measure, and that can be criticized. But at the end of the day, they have driven forward by a certain unique vision. And what is intriguing about Tunisia to me is that it's a very quiet form of government. Strong, but very quiet. You sense the presence of government, but you hardly, for example, see government ministers in public very often. You hear about cabinet meetings and so on and so forth, but government is not terribly public. Now, that can be criticized. But at the end of the day, when you take the average living standard of a Tunisian 5 years ago and now, it's visible. So a case could be made.
Mr. Bucknor, what do you do these days? The last time that you were out there, in a sense, publicly, you were running Cal Merchants Bank. You no longer do that. What do you spend your time doing these days?
I run my own financial advisory firm. Essentially, we do corporate finance, which is advising companies, governments, some individuals with significant business interests.
Is it more rewarding?
Yes, I enjoy it very much.
You enjoy what you do?
Very much.
Are you ever keen on transferring those skills to the broader picture other than your private business?
Well, I think that I try to do that to the extent that they're asked for and they're relevant whenever I can.
Are you optimistic? Do you see this place go anywhere?
Yes, that's why I have returned to Ghana, and that's why I've set up my business here.
You think it will go places?
I think it will go places.
If it does the right things?
Absolutely.
The usual thing, the right things?
Absolutely.
Are we agreed on the right things?
We have to discuss a little bit more. That's my view, and it's not necessarily a unique view. It's not necessarily the right view. But I think that when minds focus on the right set of desires and objectives, you can come out with the right ingredients. I think that we should be optimistic and bullish about Ghana. And indeed, we have a responsibility as Ghanaians to make that happen.
So there is hope.
I think there's a lot of hope.
Mr. Bucknor, I'm glad you came.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Pleasure.